Last week was a milestone of sorts here in the lower 48 states when it comes to drought, or more accurately, the lack of drought. No surprise given that this past meteorological winter was the wettest on record for the continental U.S. going all the way back to 1895. Now, the Drought Monitor is a standard dryness index. It's a joint product of NOAA, the USDA, and the National Drought Mitigation Center at the University of Nebraska. Updated every Thursday, it provides a national view of drought by outlining 5 levels of dryness. Abnormally dry in yellow, areas coming out of or possibly going into drought. Then 4 drought categories: moderate, severe, extreme in red, and exceptional, the maroon. Here's the very first Drought Monitor map from January 4th, 2000, when no areas were in extreme or exceptional drought. And now let me walk you through Drought Monitor history. You can track the percent coverage of the different categories since the year 2000. For example, the peak aerial coverage was in 2012, when 80% of the lower 48 was at least abnormally dry. Severe drought, which is the burnt orange here, also peaked at that time at 46% of the continental U.S. Now, on the low side, well, that's the milestone from last week. Notice the steep drop-off right at the end of the graph. That's last Thursday. The percentage of the lower 48 in severe drought or worse fell below 1% for the first time in Drought Monitor history, and there's no extreme drought in the lower 48 for the first time since June 2017. In fact, let's go back to that time and watch how drought conditions have evolved since. The northern high plains was the epicenter of drought at that time. Late that year and early in 2018, dryness worsened from Arkansas to northern Texas, and an area of exceptional and extreme drought overtook the southern plains and southern Rockies, holding strong near the Four Corners area as 2018 ended. And then came this past wet winter, its impact eventually wiping away the last signs of extreme drought from the lower 48 states. Now, what about here in Pennsylvania? Well, the last 2 decades have been relatively wet. In fact, the first, second, fourth, fifth, and 15th wettest years in the state have all occurred since 2000. So compared to the country as a whole, Pennsylvania hasn't had much drought over the last 2 decades. In fact, here's the same chart I showed before, except now it's just for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Now, certainly the yellow, which is abnormally dry, occasionally spikes, sometimes covering as much as or more than 80% of the state, but in most cases, the dryness quickly abates. And there are long stretches, for example, back around 2004, and right now when the entire state is drought-free. Severe drought, which remember is the burnt orange color, is pretty rare in the state, mostly absent in the last 20 years. There was a little in 2016 and 2017, and as much as 30% of the state was in severe drought at times in 2002, which was the last time extreme drought occupied any part of Pennsylvania. Through 3 months, this year is off to a wetter than average start for much of the state, though Bradford, Du Bois, and Johnstown are actually slightly below average so far. Are any big rains in our future? Stay tuned. The extended forecast is next.